All right, welcome everybody. This is a talk about making hide blocks even better. And I'm joined by the amazing Mary Fries, who works at EDC as a curriculum developer, and the amazing Victoria Phelps, who is at UC Berkeley and works as a Snap developer. So I'm sure you know what hide blocks is, but if you don't, I'll just show you very briefly. So this is the wonderful Snap interface, and there's a lot of blocks here for lots of folks, and you can even choose a single palette, and then you really get a sense of how overwhelming this might be for a new user. So if I just want them to kind of draw a square, I might go into hide blocks, and I might choose to only have move and turn and some other things. And maybe haven't taught them loops yet. So I go to hide blocks, and I'm going to say select none, and then turn, move, and turn on, and bloop. And now, I don't know why that's not working. Hide blocks, and here I'm saying this, and I'm saying nothing's on except for that one. I think the block should be.
Dan, you're doing exactly the opposite of what you need to do.
Aha, thank you. Oh, I'm confused by the wording. Well, boy, I wonder if there's a way to make hide blocks even better. So now I'm going to turn it over to stop sharing. And I kind of made that mistake, see, on purpose, to now let Mary take us through the first suggestion to how to make hide blocks better. And by the way, this is with all deference to the folks who added this feature. We love this feature.
We love this feature.
We just think this is a way to make it better. All right, Mary.
Great, Dan. I really believe that you were doing that deliberately, because I do it. I thought you were doing it accidentally. I mean, because I do that all the time. So first, why is hide blocks important? So important to us as I'm a curriculum designer, and it's also important to teachers. It allows for simplifying menus to focus learner attentions on the most relevant blocks that they're using. So this can be helpful for creating Parsons style problems, where you give students a small selection of blocks and you ask them to solve a problem, and you're really focusing on, we know these are the blocks we're using. How do we combine them to build up the type of algorithm we're trying to create? It's also useful for introductory activities, just to reduce overwhelm. And we use this most recently in our BJC Sparks curriculum, which we'll talk a little bit about tomorrow, which is a functional first introduction to computer programming for what we call in the States middle school students, which is maybe like 10 years old through 14 years old or so. So for those introductory activities, we're just looking at a couple of key blocks, getting to know the interface, getting more comfortable with programming and snapping blocks together with that minimal palette. A point has been made, and we're fully on board. We're not trying to limit access to Snap. So any kind of feature like this should still facilitate easy and findable access to the complete set of Snap primitives. The goal here is to focus attention, not to take anything away from students.
Mary, do you want to go full screen mode? I didn't mean to cut you off. I wanted to wait
yes,
for the
I would love to. I always forget where it is. It's required.
It's a little, it's a little arrow.
Here we go.
Yeah, exactly.
Great. And I'm just going to get out of it in a minute here, but here we are. Awesome. So couple of suggestions that we've been thinking about, things we've been running into is this idea of it should be intuitive. As you saw, Dan was struggling a bit there to figure out show, hide. As I said, I struggle with this personally, just like you saw Dan demonstrate all the time. Maybe it's just quirky me, but I don't think I'm the only one. So we're suggesting, or I would suggest here, that currently, instead of having that menu say something like hide blocks, which is what it does now, it could say show/hide blocks. So this is kind of a cue to the user who has some hidden blocks. Hey, you can also show blocks. And then taking a closer look at this hide blocks in palette window that Dan was struggling with. Right now we have check boxes, and these hide the blocks when they're checked. And that's the feature that I struggle to find intuitive. I always think check is gonna show it. Even though it says hide blocks right at the top, and I click the hide blocks menu, my brain just refuses to accept that fact. So we're thinking about how can we make it clearer and more intuitive what this checkbox does. Does it even need to be a checkbox? One concept that I conceived of just recently, I don't even know if Dan's had a chance to really sink into it too much, but I thought of this idea of a toggle where you're actually just kind of seeing, Green, just kind of using, I actually stole the Boolean toggle from one of our predicate blocks. Green says show, red is hide. And what's nice about that is you don't really have to explain it so much, because you kind of see, oh, this one's going to be there, this one's not going to be there. Right now, if you look at the background right-click menu, you get this feature here, and I am struggling to click things. Here we go. You have this, so we have our hide blocks. It could say show hide, so that the user with a limited palette knows, oh, there's more blocks, I could show them. But then within this menu, our hide blocks in palette window, we right click, we've got select none, all, or unused. This still requires the user to kind of think about, so selecting all, what does that do? Oh, it hides all. Alternatively, what I'm proposing is all could, instead of the word all, it could say show all, or show all blocks. Instead of none, it could be hide all, or hide all blocks. And I do recognize that these are opposite, but this is the order I think would make sense. And then unused could be hide unused blocks. So these are the sort of suggestions that I've been playing around with. And again, we love the feature. We're using it already. I think it's fantastic. And I think there's a lot of potential for curriculum developers, and also for teachers in the classroom, perhaps even also for students as they're developing projects, although I haven't personally conceived of a use case for that yet. I think that the use case for students is more, I've been handed this limited palette, I'm gaining some expertise, I want to add another block. How can I do that easily and naturally? So thank you so much.
Mary, you want to bring up the Sparks first project just to show them, like, we have time. We have actually lots of time. Do you want to just bring that up? Is that too easy?
Sure. Actually, could you go ahead, and I'll go ahead and dig up something fun to share?
No worries. I'll get it ready.
So okay. I'll find the right thing to share.
Perfect. I'll take it back over then. Here we go. And bloop. So I wanted to talk a little bit about how I use hide blocks, and I want to offer some minor suggestions. So I teach BJC to 250 students. I'll go to the next slide. Bloop. I have to make a bloop sound whenever I do that. I teach Beauty and Joy Computing to 250 students in SNAP, lovingly in SNAP every fall, and about 150 every spring. So it's about 500 or 400 every year. There's about softly about 100 in the summer. So really it's about roughly 500 over the whole year. And the higher bit is, I love this feature. I cannot say, and for any educator here, consider it. I'm not saying you have to if you really love the full block, but if you have younger learners, and I have non-majors, I have folks who, when they get to SNAP, really love the fact, it's very much like a Parsons problem. It's there. It's a little different. I think of Parsons problems as having two difficulty levels, and I'll show you. You have, in SNAP, you can have a subset of blocks here, but when I was trying to teach SNAP to my fourth grader at some point, and the way I taught SNAP to my fourth grader is I had, so here, I just open this up. What I did was, this might have been the code for this. I'm just going to throw them there. Let's say it was these three blocks in order. What I did for her, let's say it was this, and let's say this is the block. That's the answer for the block. Rather than just leave these blocks, and by the way, let's say there's two adds in here. Okay, so it's an add, delete, insert, and then another add. That was the solution. Let's just say that was the solution. What I did for her is I just scrambled them. So I love the idea that you can make a Parsons problem, but what it does is it puts them all on the left, and it doesn't remind a beginning user there might be two adds in here. So what I would do for her is I would manually scramble these in some order like this. I'd put them like this, and I would go like this, and I would say, this is the problem. So I think there are two levels of Parsons problems that are potential, and I love the idea that maybe there's a way to say scramble, which is make a Parsons problem by just moving the blocks in here, rather than limit them, and also maybe limit them here. That's another conversation. Maybe there's another possibility. But I loved when I was working with my fourth grader to just keep the exact number of blocks here, but just scrambled in the block editor. And then the job is to re-put this together like a puzzle. In fact, there's a series of books called Head First Java, that the first time I had seen this, I'd never seen a Parsons problem before then. And they would just, they would literally cut out, they would print, it was delightful. They would cut out the code, this is Java, they cut out the Java code and then literally cut them in different lines with the scissors, and then put them out and take a picture of that. And that's what they had in the book. And you would just have to think about moving them around like a refrigerator magnet. Your refrigerator magnet, you kind of move them around. So I think there's two levels of this. One is to scramble them in here, and one is to just limit them over here. So that's something that's a possibility perhaps for the future. So I love this feature. I've been using it extensively. Whenever I ask this, hey students, do you like the fact that I've limited? Oh my God, it's so much easier than having that. Whenever I ask them informally, and I don't try to put my finger on the scale and say, you like this, don't you? I just say, was that positive or negative? If you want to use a block, was it harder? They almost universally love that feature. And I also agree with everything that Mary said in terms of thinking about that the hide show confusion for some students. So I use these in two ways. I use these for my projects, and I do this because I want to have the blocks that are not relevant. I'm trying to, in BJC, make my projects more functional in the first couple of projects. And so I limit them in that way. I don't have them handy, but I have them there. And on exams, I have students code in exams, and I want them to limit the blocks they can use. There is a meta question of, and Victoria's been wonderful. We have a talk tomorrow, an hour about how to auto grade this. Because we have auto grading built in, we can check, hey, did you use a block you weren't allowed to? That certainly is programmatically. We can check that now with the introspection. So thank you for that meta programming we've added to that. But before meta programming was added, I used to suggest, hey, maybe there's a way to lock the project that once you've hidden the blocks, you can't unlock it without a key and a code. But the fact that we now have meta programming, I think obviates that request. So I'm going to take that back. And if I've ever asked in the past, I'll take it back. Here's how to improve the blocks. And then I'll pass maybe to Mary to talk about this. And then we have an amazing demo that Victoria's going to show. I want to make sure I have time for that. So here's a way I think we can improve hide blocks. Currently, as the author, if you need a block that's been hidden, there's no way to quickly toggle all the blocks back, because sometimes what I do is I write some helper blocks and then hide the helpers. But then the helpers have a bug and I have to fix them. But in fixing them, I have to use blocks that are not part of the hidden, part of the shown set. So I need to kind of, well, how do I do this? And you've watched, I think Jens, even in the keynote, had the hide blocks listed open. I've learned this. You open the hide blocks palette, and then, so it's just funny. Let's say there's no blocks shown. What you do is you open currently you have to open the hide blocks palette, and then you can drag them from this. So this is like the every block, and I can drag this into fix some hidden block. So that's a very clever thing. I didn't realize you could drag from this. I thought you could just click this thing, but yes, you can drag. That's very, very nice. And I use that all the time, as well as Jens is showing this wonderful feature. But if you haven't seen this, this is a great feature to pull this block in from here. I just think those are delightful hidden features that you wouldn't know. And maybe now there's so many hidden features. Maybe we need to have a feature of the day when you boot Snap, and you can turn that off if you don't want it. But I would certainly keep it on, because even as I think of a pretty experienced user of Snap, I still would love to learn about things that I haven't discovered yet myself. So I want to be able to quickly toggle from the hidden view back to the full Snap easily. So I wanted not to reset everything, but go back to everything for a second. I guess you can still have the menu I just showed you, but I feel like I want to be able to toggle back and forth. And I guess I showed you that you don't need that because you can show all that, but people may not know you can drag away. So, and Brian suggests, and Brian, when we first talked about hide blocks within the BJC internal, this is some inside baseball, he said, I'm not sure if I like it. I don't want to hamstring a kid who really wants to explore further. Maybe the kid gets, wants to burst out of the microworld and jump into real Snap because they're ready for it. Why are you making it hard for me to do that? Why are you making them use hide blocks? Let them be able to click a button quickly to toggle back from full Snap to the world, and full Snap to the world. That would certainly help curriculum authors also as well. So I want to remember what I've been hidden by my show hide state, and then go back to everything and go back and forth easily. So that's part one. And part two, and this is a bigger request, which is if you tell me, hey Dan, turn off all of the, let's go back in here and let's turn off all of the, so it's like all hide these except for these two. You say, how about I want to, so this is the new, obviously the smaller one, and this is now here. I say, no, I want to turn all the motion blocks on. Okay, let's go over here. You mean all the motion blocks? Yeah, I have to now click there's just no way to toggle all of the blues and leave everything. I just want to turn all these on at once. So I have a proposal, and the proposal is, in the early days, and I think I tried it just now, I couldn't get it to work, checkboxes had 3 states. Checkboxes, and I made this foo, if I go back to this hide blocks, I actually made a foo here in the bottom. Here is foo. So let me see. I made this foo. See, look, notice the foo has this unclick state. And once it's been clicked, you can't get it back to unclicked, which is probably okay. But it used to have an unclick state that you could always get. Like there were 3 clicks. I'd click once, twice, and the third one would put it back to the unclick state. So I think you could make use of the unclick state to have a third state for a checkbox. Unselected, which is empty, and Mary's suggesting that, I love that idea. Make it red. Unselected, that means none below me are shown. So I propose a hierarchical way to do this. None below me are shown if it's empty. If it's checked, that means all below me are shown. And if it's some, that means the empty state in that toggle box. And I want to show you, so I can make this work, the Dropbox selective syncs. I'm driving this in. I hope you all can see it. I'm going to look to the chat and see if everybody can see this. This is my Dropbox. And this is selective sync, when I want to selectively sync the things that are part of my repository. So if this is my 3D printing folder, if I unclick one of these, bloop, notice that this bar changes to the minus. It's not a checkbox. It's not empty. This is empty. This is checked. This is like, no, some of me, this is some state. That means some of me are checked, some of them are not. Now watch this over here as I undo this. Bloop. This becomes fully checked, and now select all is there. So I love this idea of having a way to select all and not. Boom, that's amazing. But also to say, let me not sync a whole region. And that's a really wonderful way to do that. So this idea of selectively syncing this, and boy, it would be so wonderful if we had let me stop sharing. If we had a demo, boy, if we had some way to show this, boy, Victoria, can you help us out? I wish we had a way that we could maybe show what that might look like. All right, Victoria, over to you. You need to unmute. I hope there's no echo too.
Can you hear
Yes.
me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Thumbs up.
Okay, just kidding. Okay, great. Yes, so here is a proposed demo of, a proposed version that we'd like. So here we can, we have like the little categories. We can select a whole category. So boom, I just selected all of the motion blocks. I don't have to go and select every single motion block. And I have had to do that before. I've had to select all but like 7 blocks, go through every single one and check them, and it was painful. But now I can just do something like this, and bam, I can even do my custom blocks. I can do something like that. Oh, something just happened, I don't know. I can also, we're suggesting to have the tri-state like Dan was talking about, so I wanna be able to know when some blocks are selected. So here we can see this color differentiation. So now I know that some of my motion blocks are selected. Let's go down. Let's select some of these. And now, boom, my looks blocks have been denoted that I've selected them. And then I can also select some of that. Now all of my operators are done. And now we also have this like save state of, oh, I broke something. That's okay. I've been messing around with it all day. But what we want is like a save state of the size of the palette as well, so we don't have to keep reloading. So if I widen it and I do that, it'll just save that and be easy. And one of the reasons why this is so great is because, maybe you're building, I just want to add on to, there are lots of reasons why it's so great, and Dan and Mary talked about it, but another thing is, you're building maybe like a game or a huge project for students, and you don't want them to see all the complex blocks that you made for the project, right? Personally, we've been doing auto graders, and we don't want the students to see every aspect of the local auto grader that's involved. We just want them to run their code and get the answer, and them to know whether they got 100% or 50% or, whatever. So just abstracting all of that is great. They don't need to know that. It's weird, it's confusing, they have to sift through more blocks. And now we can just do that just more easily, and just, handy tool. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. That finishes our presentation. Thanks, folks. Enjoy SnapCon. Woo! Can't wait for the next keynote.